Surf Splendor.
Yep.
But I like your the icebreaker question that you first topic that you sent over was Hawaiian surfing is dead.
Yep.
Let's start there. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, to not have the world champion decided on the North Shore of Oahu at Pipeline, you would have to say is the biggest mistake in the sport of surfing. To not have the Triple Crown a part of the end of the year to decide who makes this 𝐌𝐜𝐍𝐚𝐬 Challenger Series, who requalifies. So basically, when you have an event at 𝐒𝐿𝐻𝐸, Sunset, and at Pipeline, and you decide a world champion, well, first and foremost, you decide a Pipe Master champion, a Triple Crown champion potentially, and the world champion all in one day. And if you were to ask any surfer who's, say, over 30, I'd say 90% of the surfers would say the highlight of being a part of surfing and watching surfing is the Triple Crown and the Pipe Masters, and all that all the prestige and all the hype of ending the tour in Hawaii, of seeing surfers leave with their tails between their legs or with the gold in their hands. Think about Andy Irons. Andy Irons, I'd like to look through the data and I can probably come up with an idea, but there will never be another Andy Irons. The surfer who did it all in one day.
Yeah.
One day at Pipeline, the battle between Kelly Slater and Andy Irons, and the battles that were gladiator style. And walking away with that Pipe Master Triple Crown and world title all in one day.
So what do you think that divestment in the contest surfing in Hawaii, is that just the WSL's decision making, or are there other things at play too?
Well, there's so much that I can talk about. So in Hawaii at Sunset, Pipeline, and 𝐿𝐻𝐸, you're allowed 16 days of competition. And pretty much the WSL has the lock on the amount of days they want and they get. So you're only allowed so many days. And the goal of the WSL, I believe, is to have one event at Pipeline, their event, or one event at Sunset, their event, for the elite. The last thing they want is for the Volcom Pipe Pro, which we used to have, and we used to get better waves.
Right.
And it was in January, February. The last thing the WSL came in, they took our Volcom Pipeline Pro, threw it in the trash, and said, now this is the Pipe Pro. Vans and WSL did a little maneuver, and the WSL and Vans got a hold of our Volcom permit. The WSL and Vans switched dates. The WSL got a hold of our Volcom dates, made it the Pipe Pro. Vans got the Pipe Master dates and made it the Vans Pipe Masters. Vans owns the name to the Pipe Masters. and we're all grateful that Vans are here and they're running an event and running the Pipe Masters. But, I would really feel that there's a better way to run the Pipe Masters, in my opinion. Because there's a lot of really good pipeline surfers. And so we also had the XL Pro. The XL Pro started back in the 80s as it was called the Pro Class Trials. For you old people like myself, if there'd be 100 and something surfers in the XL Pro, everybody would get in, every surfer from around the world, Hawaii. And if you made the top 16 in the XL Pro, you qualified for the Triple Crown. And so we have no more XL Pro. We just had a little rinky-dink Hawaiian Pro, into which the prize money's $2,500 for the winner. In 1988, I was in the XL Pro and I turned pro, and I won more money than I got. Fourth place and got almost as much money as the winner got. The winner in 1988. We're talking close to 40 years ago, guys.
No.
There is 25. So in Hawaii, we have 3 events. One is for the Hawaiian QS surfers, and they're all $2,500 first prizes. They're all 1,000s. There was a point when we had about 8 events, 10 events. Basically, you have the Triple Crown, you have the Volcom Pipe Pro, you have the XL Pro. Then we had the Faith Riding Pro, the one that Kelly Slater got second in one year. That was the best he's ever done. He thought he was going to win a contest at Sunset. He never did it. Poncho Sullivan shut that down real quick. Yeah, Dan Malloy won that event. That event was a small event, but it had some prestige to it. And being able to compete at Sunset is it's pretty valuable.
Yeah.
We had the XL Pro, into which 𝐍𝐞𝐚𝐫. Well, I had a junior pro that I ran in 2012, 13, 14. I ran 3 junior pros at Sunset and Pipeline, and 𝐍𝐞𝐚𝐫 won my junior pro. Then he won the XL Pro. Then he won the Triple Crown Sunset event. So that's how you elevate the sport.
Yeah.
We had a junior pro. Zeke won it. You got an XL Pro. Zeke won it the following year. You have the Triple Crown Sunset Pro. Zeke won it the following year. And that elevated the sport. And so without using Hawaii and the events and the locations we have, it's pretty hard to elevate the sport to the level it could be.
I mean, any surf fan would agree that Hawaii is Mecca and that the emphasis of competitive surfing should focus on Hawaii. Why do you think that the WSL doesn't embrace that?
Back to kind of what I was saying, I think they want to have quality over quantity is probably what they would state it as. For example, this year, look, we have one event on tour in Hawaii.
Yeah.
There's no Sunset. So all they have is one event at Pipeline. They have the best waiting period. You have 5 Hawaiians that are on tour. You have 2 wild cards, 5 men. You have 5 men. I'm going to stick to the men here. I believe it's 5 men. You're going to have 2 wild cards. You're going to have 7 Hawaiians that are going to compete this year at Pipeline. And that's the only time those 7 Hawaiians will even have a chance to compete. Well, 2 Hawaiians, let's be real, two guys like your Jamie O'Brien, Mason Ho, all your best surfers from Pipeline, 2 of them will be in the Pipe Masters. The Pipe Pro. Only 2 guys are going to get a chance to compete at Pipeline this year, other than the Vans Pipe Master event, which that's an opportunity. But the WSL does not value Hawaii the way they should, I believe. The WSL is not giving back to giving opportunity for us to for us to groom to where's the next John and where's the next Carissa? They're
Yeah.
standing in line right now, but they have no events to compete in Hawaii.
Well, why do you think this QS events are only 1,000 point events?
Because Marty Thomas runs and basically he gets his 20 grand, 30 grand in his pocket every event, and he don't care about the surfers. The WSL are just saying, hey, Marty, run these little rinky-dink events. Just give them something. I mean, there is no live webcast. I ran 6
Right.
junior pro events 12 years ago and had live webcast.
Yeah.
It was amazing sunset. The WSL doesn't want to see amazing sunset live in Hawaii. They only want to see the Pipe Master their event.
I mean, is it strictly a matter of resources? They don't want to put money behind the event?
So I would think that I could almost guarantee that if they had somebody selling the events in Hawaii, if the WSL went out and sold these events as a package, if WSL Hawaii Marty Thomas had like a marketing person or a salesperson, they could have a lot of events with a lot of money, but they really are not. I feel they could care less. They've thrown Hawaii surfing in the trash.
I agree that they have. I don't understand what the motive would be. Like, it seems to simplify their life. If all the if all of surfing goes to Hawaii during the wintertime, there's guaranteed waves. You're guaranteed to be able to run events. You don't have to be flying across the country like they do in Australia to run 3 events there. They can just do it all contained in a short period of time. It
Yep.
seems to simplify their business and cut back on all the expenses compared to where they do it elsewhere in the world. So I don't understand, unless it's just that they completely misunderstand the value of Hawaii to surfing, or maybe other countries are throwing money at them to run events in Australia and things like that. I know they do, obviously, in Australia and Portugal and elsewhere. So maybe it's economics.
Yeah, I think I mean look at El Salvador.
Right.
Look at these different countries. Look at some recent
Brazil.
ones. Yeah, I mean Brazil. All these events that are ran in these shithole locations. The government gives them millions of dollars or whatever it is to run them.
Yeah.
But is that the goal here? Bottom
Mm,
line is the bottom line all about money? What about prestige? What about respect? What about integrity and understanding the culture and where it started and how important Hawaii is?
I think they'd have a better chance of making money if they embraced what you're talking about. I mean, ultimately, um, man versus nature in Hawaii and woman versus nature in Hawaii is compelling, and that will engage an audience outside of your core surf audience. So it behooves them to actually lean into the culture and the core of the culture to find, their broad market audience.
Yeah, I mean, so we can dip into like this Challenger Series crap beach break. I remember watching David Silva in the ISA when he was 14 down in Nicaragua or Panama, and the kid was just owning it. I was like, this kid's gnarly. And then I remember him winning an event at like Newcastle or Manly or something, and it was knee high. And I posted on social media what a joke it is that this is how you qualify.
Yeah.
And it's proven David Silva's surfing will not be elevated to the level he needs to be because he has never put in the time in real waves because he's stuck doing both tours all year long.
Yeah.
Toby Martin 20 years ago, if you remember Toby Martin, he
Totally.
dequalified and requalified. He was the epitome of the problem with the ASP. and now WSL. Basically, the Challenger Series is ping pong. And let's get the best ping pong players and put them in Wimbledon.
Doesn't translate.
The Challenger Series is, you know, Boomers. You heard of Boomers, where they go ride go-karts down there at Boomers?
Yeah.
You know, go-kart riding at Boomers. Let's have everybody go to Boomers and ride go-karts, and let's qualify guys for NASCAR.
Yeah. And
let's see if guys like Dale Earnhardt, like Kelly Slater, even get affected at all. The way the tour is, I'll be able to help Kelly down to. Kelly will be able to be wheelchaired down to Chopo at 75 years old in a wheelchair and paddle out and beat guys that just qualified. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Because they're never going to get to his level and the level of John and the level of these guys if you're not running these events in waves that mimic the CT.
Let's take a break from contest surfing just for a little bit and give me your origin story. Where did you grow up?
So I was born in Berkeley, California, of all places. And I lived there. And this is 1969, People's Park Revolution, hippies, communes, cults, the whole deal. In 1978, I moved to Hawaii.
Were your parents hippies?
My mom was a hippie. My dad wasn't. My mom and dad separated, and my mom was full-on hippie. I mean, you could check out the 100-Foot Wave season 1, episode 3, and you can see a little bit about our hippieism and the cults we were in and stuff.
Yeah, I found that fascinating when I watched it. I was unaware of it up until then, but they did a great job unpacking that a little bit. So what brought was your mom that moved to Hawaii?
Yeah, so crazy story is my mom was a hippie. She was going all over the place. I mean, me and my brother were in British Honduras, Belize, Guatemala. When we were like 5, we were living down in the jungle for about 6 months, just crazy stuff as kids. And then in 1975, my mom made her way to Hawaii, and she ended up on Kauai. And she was out in Kalalau Valley, Nepali coast, living out there with all the pot growers. And she would cook their food and hang out with all the hippie pot growers out in Kalalau. And then she came back 6 months later and said, we're going to Hawaii. And we packed up, said bye to everybody, got in a van with some kind of questionable guy and started to drive down to LA to get our flight. We made it about halfway and ended up back in Berkeley for another year, another 2. Took 3 years for us to finally make it to Hawaii. Wow. When we arrived, the flights don't fly to Kauai. We were on our way to Kauai. We were going to live out in Kalalau Valley. But the flights came to Oahu. And we arrived, stayed in a hotel, got a car, drove out to the North Shore, and ended up in Haleiwa day 1. And there's a place called Wailua Bakery right there. Back then it was like Sassy Sprouts. I remember eating a sandwich there. And then we walked across the street where Long's is, where, you know, the banks are right there in the main part of Haleiwa, and looked on the bulletin board and saw like an apartment for rent. And we drove down into Cement City, which is in Wailua, which is in Mokulea area. And we rented a little apartment there. We had came out with this kind of weird guy that my mom had a fake marriage with, and he was very weird. And within 3 days, he was gone, and we were on welfare, and we were living in a little apartment with, luckily there was carpet on the floor, because that's what we slept on. And basically from there, it was Wailua Elementary. And basically food stamps, subsidized living, government support type thing. And day 1 at school, me and my brother walking into school and getting surrounded by a bunch of Filipinos and trying to fight us and teasing us. And It's called Once a Howley, Always a Howley.
Yeah.
To
Did
this
you, I
day.
mean, it sounds like considering the years prior that might have felt normal to you. I mean, was that different than how you'd been living previously?
Actually, to tell you the truth, we only had a few stints with our mom doing some crazy radical kind of hippie stuff.
Oh, okay.
We packed up with the Christ family and we walked and hitchhiked from Berkeley, California to Mount Shasta to go up there to watch the mountain open up and watch the Martians come out of the mountain. That's kind of a true story, and it's still, if you look it up on YouTube, there's stories and people up in Mount Shasta and up in Redding, up in that area, that believe there's Martians that live inside of that mountain, and they
Wow.
wait for them to come out.
Wow.
So yeah, we were in this crazy religion called the Christ family, and we weren't allowed to have shoes. We weren't allowed to eat meat. It was just wacko. And we went up there to see the Martians come out. They never came out, so we went back to Berkeley. But we lived with my dad a lot. My dad had a restaurant and had a house, and we lived on this amazing block. It's, if you ever been to Berkeley, it's Shattuck and Ashby, the two main streets, center of Berkeley.
Okay.
We were one block towards Oakland on the street called Emerson, and we had 20 friends. We played baseball, soccer, and all that. And so one day we were all playing baseball. When we were all playing skateboarding, we put a 4x8 sheet on my friend's porch, and we were just, how you could put a sheet of plywood on some stairs and just turn it into a ramp. So that's what we did. I had to use the bathroom, so I walked in the house, and this was 1976, and the older brother of my friend was sitting there, and he's sitting there watching the 1976 Pipeline Masters on Wide World of Sports. And I stopped for a second, and I looked, and I went, "Oh, that's rad." I asked him. He said, "Oh yeah, that's surfing. That's the Pipe Masters." And I was like, "Wow, that's kind of cool." So that's the first time I ever seen surfing. We used to go down to Santa Cruz and go to the sandbars and hang out. And we actually would go to Half Moon Bay and eat a buffet over there at some pizza joint all the time. And because close to Berkeley, so we'd venture down to Santa Cruz and Half Moon Bay and stuff, but we never surfed. We never even thought of surfing. And then when we were moving to Hawaii, we didn't want to move. My mom was like, "Well, you guys like skateboarding, right? So you can skateboard on the water." And so we ended up in Hawaii and made a few friends. 3 months in, one of our friends' birthdays, and he told his mom he wanted to go to Haleiwa Beach for his birthday and go surfing. And the mom said, "Well, go dig under the house and pull out all the boards." So he dug under his house. We dug all these surfboards out, and we all went surfing at Haleiwa Beach. That was my first time surfing.
Wow.
And then the last thing I'll say on that note is we looked in the newspaper and we found a $15 surfboard at Schofield Barracks, and we drove up there in my mom's $100 Dodge Dart and bought a $15 7.6, and that was me and my brother's first board that we shared.
Do you remember who shaped it?
I wish. What I do remember is after riding it for 6 months, my brother took a saw and sawed 2 feet out of the middle and turned it into a 5.6. So now we had a short board. He cut the middle of the board out, glassed it back together, and we rode it.
No. Why would he cut the middle out?
Because we wanted to make it shorter.
I mean, everybody else just shapes it down. You know what I mean? Like delams and then, or yeah, strips the glass off and then
The
shapes it.
easiest way was just cut the middle and glass it together. He was pretty good at like fixing bikes and working on things. And I mean, we're 9 and 11. I mean,
Crazy.
we wanted a short board.
Did it work?
Yes, it did.
No way.
We got a little bit of fiberglass like cuts on our arms because paddling, and it was pretty funny, but
That is so funny.
true story.
That's crazy. So do you remember your first experience at Pipe?
So we lived in Haleiwa for many years, and that's where we learned to surf, and we were taken in by Marvin Foster and Robert Naply and Kerry Terrakina and Keith Terrakina, and all the all the brothers in Haleiwa, and we were part of the surf center. That was kind of our place we would go, and that was our life. In 1980, I got to see Sean Thompson and Mark Richards. I remember sitting there watching Mark Richards with this bar of wax that was literally about 4 inches thick and about 4 inches wide. It was like paraffin, but a huge version of it. And I watched Mark Richards like for about an hour wax his board. That was the year Ian Cairns won the event, and that was my first time watching a professional surfing contest. We never made our way past Chud's Reef or Lonnie's for years. And then I got to know this guy, Fielding Benson, and he brought us up to the North Shore a few times. And we got really, really, really lucky in 1983. We still had welfare. We were still welfare, still barely eating, not barely eating, but yeah, not eating steaks. Let's put it that way. My mom was a vegetarian. Our sandwiches were lettuce and tomato sandwiches with some mayonnaise on there. A little salt and pepper made it taste all right. We didn't even have meat sandwiches. But anyway, in 1983, we found a house just past Ted's Bakery on Wahiva Street, a 4-bedroom for $400 a month.
Wow.
And we moved up to Sunset Beach. And there's this guy named James Labrador. He's kind of the V-Land local, one of the brothers, legendary V-Land surfer. It was his cousins. They still live at that house to this day. I see the family. I see the mom walking the bike path. Like I literally saw her the other day, and I give her a hug every time. Yeah. So in 83, we moved before 83, 84, we didn't even surf up here. We might've surfed Aukai once. 84, 85, Rocky Point was on. It was Rocky Point. It was V-Land. 85 was the first time I paddled out to pipe. I was 15. And 86, I was in the Pipe Masters.
Crazy. So let's talk about that first time you paddled out. Was there anybody ushering you out into the lineup? Did you catch a wave the first time you were out there? What was the protocol?
Well, back then, I don't remember exactly vividly details, but I probably only had like a 6'2" or something. Went out there, I only had one board. I used to ride one board and everything. I'm sure I caught a few waves and nobody helped me. I didn't have anybody taking me out there and telling people, let them go or whatever. That happened maybe at Belzeland occasionally, or Rockies, where some of the uncles would give me some waves. But yeah, there was no kids out there. I might have paddled out with like Kalohe Bloomfield and Aaron Gerberick, a couple of my friends, my brother. Me and my brother both, I was 15, he was 17. I was 16, he was 18. But just surfing Rocky Point every day. And then I had some spots in Mokalea, Kaina Point area. There's a spot down there that's actually like Pipeline that, believe it or not, was on the cover of Surfing Magazine, Mike Latronic, many, many years ago. And there's a wave down there that looks like Pipeline. So I'd go down there and train at those kinds of waves. So I got I got decently confident in real waves really quick. Okay. By 16, I was, had a couple boards and was charging some waves and got my Ted Grambo, took my first photo of me. It was a spread in Surfing Magazine. It was a flash shot, or Surfer Mag. No, it was Surfer, because Surfing blackballed me for a while there.
Why did they blackball you?
Because I would drop in on everybody at Rocky Point. They'd have all their guys from Australia and California and wherever, and they'd want to come get the photo. Rocky Point was Kodak Reef and 50 cameramen on the beach, and in a business sense, or for them, like, I can understand, they're there trying to get a photo of Richard Dog Marsh or of freaking Todd Holland or whoever. I'm out there. Now I'm on welfare, dude. I'm trying to make some money. Give me mine. I'm here all summer, all year. You guys come and go. You come, you take, you leave. So I would just burn them. They say that Rocky Point is where I was told Rocky Point's where the drop-in was invented. I was just continuing the legacy. All right. Okay.
Back in
so
action.
where did we left off?
You were talking about burning people at Rocky Point, but I was going to ask you, coming off of welfare, what was the first paycheck you made in surfing?
So in 1988, I made the finals of the XL Pro. It was me, Kalohe Bloomfield, who was my best friend. I'd never won an amateur event in my life. I made a few finals. My best result in an amateur contest was the Mabo Royal, which is called the Haleiwa International Open. Joel Centeo and those guys run that event. Classic story is it was Brock Little, Clark Little, this other guy, Alkai Ferguson, Matt Archibald, and myself, and I think one more guy. Matt Archibald was doing aerials on the toilet bowl at Haleiwa. The judges said, "This guy's leaving the wave. Don't judge him."
No way.
Like literally, he won the fight. He won. He was doing airs. This was like 1985.
Crazy.
86. It was crazy. This guy Alkai Ferguson won the contest. He's like P.D. Johnson's best friend. Guy's he was a water polo coach at Kahuku for many years. Real nice guy. But it was so funny. Archie was doing airs, and the judges they didn't know what to do. They just like, yeah, he left the wave.
That's crazy.
Don't score that.
Wild. So your first paycheck though.
So made the finals. It was $250 at that. There was a time when if you accepted $250 or more, you became pro. It was either 10,000 a year or accepting money in a professional competition. But I was going to take every penny. It was 250 or 500, maybe 500, maybe 800. I forget. Yeah, I think actually it was $800. Okay. It was 250 was the number that if you went beyond 250, you were now a pro.
Gotcha.
So I won 800. Michael Ho won the event. Hans Cederman got Kalohe Bloomfield got second. Hans Cederman got third, and I got fourth. So it's a crazy event.
So you're off to the races. When did sponsors come?
So through the years, there's a guy named Steve Elliott who made some of our surfboards as kids, real young. He hooked us up, and there's another guy named Jam in Hawaii, Clem Camus. Those guys made us a couple boards, and then Dick Roseborough from Florida, Roso, famous guy from Jacksonville, Florida. He was making boards. There were a bunch of Florida guys living on the North Shore, growing weed and surfing and making surfboards for everybody. And he was our first kind of real surfboard sponsor. And then I met the Willis brothers in 1985, and I helped them put together like a world-class team with Johnny Boy and Jason Majors and Junior and Dave Cantrell and just the Kenny Maka brothers. And we had a guy from Huntington, trying to think of his name, John, I can't think. I'll think of his name in a minute. He's still around. He's a main Huntington guy, really good surfer. John Parmenter, Dave Parmenter's brother.
Oh yeah.
And then we had Peter Davy, and we had all these guys. We had this gnarly team, and they had a bunch of money. They dumped a bunch of money into all the guys, made everybody boards. That's when that Phaser bottom came out. And then in 1986, 87, My brother went to Japan. Willis Brothers, our sponsor, had a connection with Hotline Wetsuits in Japan. So my brother went to Japan. He came back from Japan with boxes of stuff and just surfboards and just so much stuff. Like he got a clothing sponsor, a wetsuit sponsor, a surf shop sponsor. There's a company called Murasaki Sports. They're like the biggest sports company in Japan. Me and my brother were the first riders for them. 1988, my brother broke his back. And then actually, that's when me and my brother went on our first surf trip to California in 87. We stayed in Santa Cruz with Richard Smith and Rufo and all the boys in Santa Cruz. And funny story is Denjiro Sato, legendary cameraman, Jerry Lopez's personal cameraman. He got a station wagon, him and his wife. Me and my brother jumped in his car and we drove from Santa Cruz to LA. And on the way, we drove down Highway 1 and we found Fuller's and went out and surfed Fuller's and took photos at Fuller's, which is unheard of. Guys were trying to beat us up. We told them we know Peter Davy. They didn't touch us. It was crazy. Like there's literally a mag shot in the Japanese magazine of Garrett Hotline Wetsuits on a wave at Fuller's. Not many people are able to shoot Fuller's and put it in Japanese magazines. I don't think that's ever happened. Wow. We drove all the way down to LA. We got out. My brother got out in San Clemente and stayed with Dino Andino because me and my brother didn't really get along, but that was our first surf trip together. And I ended up down in Solana Beach, staying at the Willis Brothers family's mom and dad's house a few blocks up from the main part of Solana Beach. I stayed in this little trailer, this little mini truck trailer, just like a truck, basically a little Ford truck with a little camper shell on it. I got dropped off over there, had a couple $100 in my pocket. I begged my mom for her $1,000 savings to let me go on this surf trip. We had no money. We're still on welfare. She had $1,000. She gave it to me to go on this trip. We surfed the PSAA circuit. But basically, Garrett hung out in San Clemente with Dino Andino, kind of on his high horse with Dino. And Dino's the man, and Garrett's hanging out with him, and they're eating well and hanging out. Me, I'm by myself down in Solana Beach. I went down to Pillbox first day, surfed a little spot called Pillbox, met all these Texas college kids, and I kind of knew how to make friends. And before you knew it, I was hanging out with all these rich Texas college kids and surfing trestles and surfing around and this and that. So that year, we went back to Hawaii. My brother broke his back at Waimea. So I traveled to Japan to re-up all of our contracts. And I would go I have a portfolio, like literally back in the day, I traveled with like these big black portfolios where you like carry this portfolio like you're walking into an interview. Things were different, kids. We used to travel with portfolios and photos that we cut out of magazines and have to show up and have meetings with companies with your portfolios. It wasn't social media. And so I went to Japan and I went out I surfed in the Niijima Pro in 1988, which is where all your Tom Currens and everybody was there. It was the real deal. Back in these days, you could go anywhere in the world and surf in a pro event. You just show up, you enter, you're in. And I went to all these Japanese companies and re-upped all of our contracts. And so me and Garrett were head to toe Japanese sponsors, first and only ever to this day, non-Japanese who were actually head to toe sponsored through Japan. And I didn't have to deal with the political bullshit. So it allowed me to be the Dennis Rodman or John McEnroe of the sport of surfing.
Were they surf brands?
Yeah, they were. They were actually. So it was. We had a company called Peekaboo, and they had these bright fluorescent pink, the most weirdest, funniest clothes you ever seen in your life. And we do these ads for them, and they ended up doing ads in Surfing Magazine at one point. So we had like surf shop sponsor and clothing sponsor and wetsuit sponsor and surfboard sponsor. And it evolved to, at one point, it had like 3 Japanese surf shop sponsors at the same time, tour companies, cosmetic companies, like just mafia guys, whatever. They all took care of us. And so and that was at a time in that era, about a year or 2 after that, this surf industry in America went to shit. And we were actually making more money than 90% of the pro surfers, because I was getting like $2,000 a month from my surfboard sponsor.
Wow.
Like $2,000 from a surfboard company.
Crazy.
And then getting like, $1,000 a month from surf shops. And, I was fortunate to be making 6 figures.
In the 80s.
Yeah. Late 80s, early 90s. Yep.
So it's funny hearing you tell it, because growing up, seeing you in the magazines, I'd see all of those stickers and sponsors, and I had no idea what any of the brands were, and so I didn't know if they were surf brands or if they were just Japanese, like a grocery store or whatever. But it all makes sense now.
Yeah, it was, in one sense, it was cool because they didn't care if you got in arguments or fights or you burned people or whatever. They just wanted photos. They respected Hawaii surfing enough to where they wouldn't clip you if you got in an argument or you said something stupid. On the other sense, like, there was one point when like Richard Wolcott was running Quicksilver, and they were at the Keiki Bungalows, and they had the whole Quicksilver team all over there. And I went and hung out with Richard Wolcott, and he gave me some Quicksilver stuff. And I was hanging out with Rabbit and Jeff Hornbaker and Chappie Jennings and all these guys. I take them surfing some secret spots, and started to get in there with some of the big companies. And I was that close to, maybe getting on Quicksilver, but it never happened. And so, I think I could have probably made a lot more money when push came to shove in the end with the American industry, but I wouldn't take anything back from, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. I'm curious, considering your history or where you came from, the lack of resources that your parents had, what did you do with that money as a young guy making all that? Did you squander it?
Actually, I was pretty good. I had about so we're renting a beach house that I actually own now right here at Monster Mush. The Surfline cams are on my house.
Oh,
Rocky
okay.
Left Surf Cam is on my house. In 1991 to 95, I rented a beach house. I had Rizal Tanjun come stay at my house. I took care of the guy. I gave, I've taken care of a lot of people over the years. But anyway, I had a nice beach house. Some crazy stories. I mean, so my roommate was I had Chris Brown living with me. Good friend of mine. He was dating the girl who lived at my house. He lived with me all winter. I mean, I had parties at my house with Marvin Foster and Peter Davy and Junior Moipono and guys who are all, Chris Brown and Shane Beshin and all these guys who are all gone. And I got photos of, back in the day there. But anyway, so I'm renting this house, and it's 91, 92. I'm making close to 6 figures, right around 6 figures. I got about 80 grand saved. And that's when they came out with the like Ford Explorer. And it was like the first SUV. I think there's one before the Ford Explorer that came out, but for me, it was the Ford Explorer. It was the first SUV, and I'm like, I want to buy one of those. And then my wife looks at me and she goes, "Hey, the house over there is for sale, 2 doors down." I said, "Okay, cool. I'm going surfing." And then I got out of the water, and she said, I looked at the house. It's pretty nice. I said, "All right, that's rad. I'm going surfing." And then within a week, she put down an offer on the house, and I said, "All right, cool. I'm going surfing." And we closed on the house Fortunately got it for $330,000. I borrowed about 20 grand from one of my Japanese friends, and we put 100 grand down. Today, I still owe about 330,000 on this house.
But it's worth a lot more.
Yeah, I was able to refinance over and over and over, and we own another house. We own like 3 houses right here. Well, the bank owns half of it, or
Sure.
whatever. But yeah, I would have bought the Ford Explorer, and I would have probably like took everybody to Lele's every night, and bought some new Nikes or whatever.
Yeah,
I
of
didn't really
course you
care.
would.
Money didn't mean much to me.
Well,
I,
without parents guiding you or somebody to teach you financial literacy, of course you would go spend all that money. You think it's never going to stop, you know? So,
yeah. Well, I mean, look, I went to Wailua Elementary School, and then I went to Wailua High School. I was in school with Jason Majors and Ronnie Burns and Brock Little, and Clark Little was my best friend. I took him under my wing when he was a kid. He came from Punahou. He came from a private school. He was scared shitless, walked into Wailua High School. I took care of him, kind of backed him up. And then we went up to Kahuku High School. My brother graduated from Wailua. In 1984, when we moved to Sunset, I ended up going to Kahuku. We had Petey Johnson and Jack Johnson, and all the Moiponos and all different Chris Angel, all these different characters and surfers. And so basically I flunked 10th grade. I was partying really bad, all caught up in 85, 86. And then I passed 10th grade the next year. I was halfway through 11th grade, and I cut out of school one day, and I walked down the pipe, and pipe was firing. And I walked into the Gerry Lopez yard because I was accepted there. Gerry and all Marvin, all the boys, everybody took care of me and let me in. And there was Nathan Fletcher and Christian Fletcher and Herbie Fletcher, and Pipeline was firing. And I looked at them and I thought to myself, this is the day that I become a pro surfer. And that was the last day I spent in Kahuku High School. And I ended up getting my master's at the Pipeline. Even though they didn't give me the certificate, 92, I got my master's. 93, the first year Kelly won it. That's a whole nother story. But I did win the Volcom Pipeline Pro in 1990. So to me, that's, whether you win the Volcom Pipe Pro or the Pipe Masters, you're a Pipe Master.
yeah. Can you tell me about the Friday the 13th swell in 1991?
Yeah. So me and my brother were in Japan so I've been to Japan 40 times. I can speak basically fluent Japanese. I've had over 1,000 Japanese guys stay with me. I've taken care of every single Japanese guy there is. I was known as the ambassador to Japanese surfing here in Hawaii. I can go anywhere in Japan to this day, anywhere, rock in at any beach town in the country of Japan, and I can guarantee you I'll find some friends and I'll be treated pretty well. We were there doing our marketing and promotions and contests as we did every year. And back then, there's no internet, there's no Surfline. The way that people knew, your Pat Caldwells and like say Chris Owens of today, or like people who know, your Surfline guys, you look at those storms that come up Japan. So the rule is in Japan, when it gets really cold and snows, Wakita tells me there's just Wakita and this guy Kondo and Kin and them, they're like, oh, there's going to be pipeline. Whenever it snows and gets really cold and they get a storm, it's pipeline, good chance. These 2 typhoons were coming up, 2 heavy storms were coming. We changed our flight because we knew that like these are really good potential to be good swells in Hawaii. There was literally 2 gnarly storms, like typhoons or whatever, hurricanes, or 2 lows heading towards Hawaii. we got on the plane and we're riding in the plane. This is a true story and a classic. When we're in the plane, and from takeoff to landing, it was just the gnarliest plane ride. Just imagine like the gnarliest turbulence you had for like 15 minutes on a plane. Well, it was 8 straight hours of that. And 4 hours in, like 2-3 hours into it, my brother like purposely sat in the back of the plane. We sat in the back because that's where you get the most action. The stewardesses were sitting down next to my brother, and they were cringing. And my brother looked at him. He's like, "Is this the gnarliest you've ever had? Is this like the heaviest ever?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "All right." So we got back to Hawaii, and the swell was on the way, and it was this crazy, crazy swell. And, this is September, Friday the 13th, 1991. No internet. Guys from town would probably show up like a day late or 2 days late because there was no webcams, and you had to have a bro who knew a bro who called a bro. The guys from the outer islands, they'd have to call. So it was like 6 to 8, 4 to 6 feet, and just rising fast on Friday. And I walked down there by the ʻEukai lifeguard stand, and I looked and I saw these 8 to 10 foot waves just out of the blue. And there's not one person in the water. And there's Peter Cole. And Peter Cole looks at me and he said, "I've never seen this before. I've never seen this type of direction and this type of swell coming in this fast." And so I ran back, grabbed my board, went down to Jerry's house. We had Sato over there, Denjiro Sato, a few other guys around. It was 10 to 12 feet with 15-foot sets, like within 30 minutes. It went from 4 foot to 15 foot in like 2 hours. So I grabbed my board, ran down, paddled out. At that point, I was in between sponsors. I had a Brett Moore moto board that he made for me. It was an 8.4. It had a big fin on the back. It's the Ronnie Burns, Eric Arakawa model. You put a bigger fin on the back. It's like gives you more lift. And I paddled out, got out there, and it was 10 to 15 foot and the perfectest day ever. And I'm out by myself. Probably caught about 5 to 10 waves by myself. There was no cameraman. There was no one around. The beach was empty. So Gerry rocked up, around 3 o'clock. This was probably like noon. And then Gerry rocked up around 3, and Derek and Sato and my brother, and they're all sitting there. And about 10 guys went down the beach and tried to paddle out, and they all ended up down at, gas chambers. They couldn't get out. And so they're all walking back. And Gerry comes in the gate and looks out and goes, "What's going on? Why is there only one guy out? Why is Liam out there by himself?" And they're like, "Well, all these guys are trying to get out. Nobody can get out." And so it took I had it a good hour, let's say, by myself. And finally everybody started making it out, and it was crazy. It was 10 to 20 wave sets. It was maybe normally you have a set every 10 minutes and 5 waves in a set. No, we had a set every 5 minutes and 20 waves in a set. So it was crazy. Yeah, it was the mother of all swells.
And the reason that the beach was uncrowded throughout all the morning was just because it was early season and they didn't know?
Yeah, there's just no one around. It's September. I mean, some of the surfers. So, for example, there was not one non-Hawaiian surfer at this swell. Not one. There was not one non-North Shore local for maybe that day. Gerry was the only guy who called over and kind of like he got the inside word because he knew somebody that knew about storms and this and that. The next day is when people started showing up from the other side of the island and a couple guys from the outer islands. But this is Friday the 13th. It got 15 to 18 feet. Saturday the 14th was 10 to 15 all day and perfect. That was the one swell I pulled my shield down, and I got a mag shot with me pulling the shield down. And so Derek ended up getting hurt. Gerry ended up getting hurt on Saturday. So half a Saturday I kind of had pretty much. I mean, I'm not here to be egotistical in any way or whatever, but I was blessed being a part of this time when Pipeline was on fire, and this day was the day of all days. And there was maybe 10 people that really wanted it and could handle it. Yeah, there's more. I'm not going to say 10. There's probably 20, because you had your Marvin Fosters and Dane Kealoha's and Johnny Boys and all the gnarly guys. So there was let's say there's 30 guys out, and 25 of them were the who's who of surfing in the 80s and 90s, and there's 5 guys on bodyboards, or a chick on a body, maybe Phyllis on a bodyboard or something. But yeah, halfway through Saturday, Gerry and Derek both got hurt. Sunday was still 10 to 12 feet and perfect. Monday was still 8 to 10 foot. I surfed 4 straight days. Probably got more good waves on that swell than your good pipe surfer these days gets in 5 years.
Wow. Insane. Is that the best run you've ever seen?
Yeah, I've never surfed Pipeline 4 days in a row on the same swell.
Right.
And to surf Pipeline 4 days in a row is real Pipeline is pretty rare. Pretty rare.
Unbelievable. Tell me about the altercation with Jeff Booth in the 1992 Pipe Masters.
Basically, I rode a big board when I was surf Pipeline, and if I'm winning the heat and you need a wave, I'm not letting you get one. And if you paddle for a wave and I'm outside of you, I'm going and I'm going to take it. He blocked me. I paddled over him. He interfered with me. He should have got interference. I'm out the back. I'm 50 feet outside of him. I'm stroking in on my Gerry, gliding in like I do. He's on the inside of me trying to get the wave. There's no priority. I got priority because I'm out the back and I'm rolling in. You've now blocked me. So I'm going to come over. I'm okay. You blocked me. I'm coming up on top of you. And I'm going to give you an interference. He turned around, hit me, but I had a helmet on. So all he did was hurt his hand. You know, should have been interference on him. He should have been fined and he should have been kicked out of the event. But I'm the Dennis Rodman and John McEnroe, and I'm the bad guy. So that's how that played out.
Who won the heat?
I made it. He lost.
Okay, good. Tell me about first time Bruce and Andy come to the North Shore.
So the Willis brothers sponsored me, and the Willis brothers somehow started sponsoring Bruce and Andy. The Willis brothers were my first surfboard sponsor, real, and they were Bruce and Andy's first surfboard sponsor. Bruce and Andy's dad, Phil Irons, called me up. Never met him. Don't know him from Ricky Irons, their cousin, really good friend of mine, really good surfer magazine editor. We grew up together. I'm not sure why they didn't call him. Maybe because the dad was like North Shore Christian Fellowship and super like Christian-y and stuff. And I'm not sure maybe why they didn't reach out to their cousins. But he called me and said, hey, is there any chance my kids can come over and you could take them to the Menehune contest and let them spend the night? And I said, sure, because that's what I do. You know, Strider Wasilewski stayed at my house. You know, Rizal Tanjun, these guys first time to the North Shore, I took care of them. All the Santa Cruz guys, all the, you know, all the boys from Santa Cruz, Josh Loyas and all the West Side Santa Cruz guys. But anyway, Bruce and Andy came, stayed at my house. I picked them up in my little Ford F-150, or not F-150, Ford Ranger. And I drove them to the Menehune contests. And they smoked everybody.
Did they?
They got first and second, pretty much. That year or the next year, whenever it was, Bruce beat Andy. So Andy beat him. They fought, and then Andy broke his trophy and threw it in the trash right there in front of everybody. They were so far ahead of everyone. It was ridiculous. They were the best to. This is when they were like 10 and 11, 9 and 10. I mean, these kids are 10 years old, and their parents sent them to my house, and I took care of them. They came back a few months later for the Rel Sun Menehune. They came back the next year for the next Menehune. But meanwhile, like Donald Paia from Quicksilver, he's like eyeing them up, and all these guys are eyeing them up, and everybody kind of, Dave Riddle and everybody kind of seeing, oh. And the funny story is the next year they came back, and I got a call. I'm down at the airport, and I'm waiting for them curbside. You know, you're able to wait curbside back in those days. And Bruce comes running up to me with his board bag, throws his board bag in the back of the truck, and he says, I'm like, where's Andy? He's, oh, he's not coming. Let's go. So I start the car and I start driving off, and I'm like a quarter mile down, and I look back and he's yelling and screaming, and wait for me. He tried to get me to leave Andy. It's classic.
That is so funny.
So I brought him to the Menehune that year, and then that's when Quicksilver sponsored them both. And that's kind of when my job was technically done, because, well, actually they still stayed with me more times over the years, because Quicksilver didn't like, I mean, these kids are 12 and 13. Like they can't just go stay at a surf house. They need a chaperone or a guardian or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bruce and Andy's like first few years on the North Shore were with me, and Bruce and Andy's first, I used to sit them on the beach at Pipe. Like I drive them down, and you guys sit here, I'm going surfing. They'd watch me surf for 5 straight hours.
Amazing.
Following year, same thing. I'm out there, it's 15 feet, and I turn around and look, and there's Andy. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, I'm getting some. At like 14, they finally started venturing out. They weren't sitting on the beach no more.
Yeah. I'm curious what you mentioned all the people that come and stay with you, and it feels like you have a real, like you feel a sense of responsibility to kind of, you know, help cultivate some of that talent and provide people a place to stay and all that. What's the philosophy behind it?
Well, so when I had nothing and I traveled around, I had people take care of me. When I was raised in Hawaii, I didn't have a dad. I had Hawaiian uncles. I had Marvin Foster, who didn't let nobody fuck with me. I had Titus and Ali Kai Kinimaka, who showed me like what aloha and what respect and what culture is. I had an uncle named Robert Naplai. This guy was like one of the most feared guys in Hawaii and on the North Shore. He owned a pig farm down in Haleiwa. In fact, the movie The North Shore, his dad is the one who's like the pig guy. That's his pig farm. Robert Naplai is like, if people know him, you know him. He was the biggest, gnarliest, but most genuine Hawaiian guy. I would go to his house for, you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's where I'd go get to eat real food and got taught aloha. So when I traveled around the world, started to travel a little bit, you know, people would take care of me. That's one of the reasons, like Santa Cruz. So it's kind of Santa Cruz. Japan was a no-brainer because it started when we rented that house at Velziland. We started renting rooms to Japanese guys because we needed money. So we'd rent a room for like $300 to a Japanese guy. And Keone Burger, Nozaki, Keone Cheeseburger, Keone Nozaki, his father, Nick Nozaki, was kind of the guy taking care of everybody. And he was right down the street, and he was living with Fred Lorenzo, this legendary surfer guy, Fred Lorenzo. And there's an influx of Japanese guys that needed places to stay. So we started renting rooms. And then once I got my own house, I started renting rooms. It's just what you do, you know? And then, so it was like the California Santa Cruz guys. It was the San Clemente, like Terrence McNulty kind of Strider kind of guys, like anybody who I bonded with and got to know through surfing and trips to California. I would take care of these guys. You know, they'd pay some rent. They'd buy their honey bunches of oats for me to eat and stuff. And, you know, they'd put some money in my gas tank, but I'd pick them up at the airport. I wouldn't charge them for, you know, and I'd hook them up. And then it was like trip to Indonesia in 1990. I got to meet all the boys. 𝐍𝐜𝐿𝐻𝐸 took care of me. And then I met 𝐍𝐞, and I, you know, but Batet, when Batet was 14, I took him with, I had a surf tour that I was doing down there, and I took Batet on our tour. His first magazine shot was with me when he was 14. Rizal Tanjun, I got him sponsored by 𝐌𝐜 and Gerry Lopez. And then I brought him to Hawaii, or he came to Hawaii, and he stayed at my house at Rocky Point. And I took him out to Pipeline, and I sat with him after he couldn't catch a wave for 4 hours and told him to come on in by me. And the wave that changed his life, the wave of the winter, that winter, I gave to him. I was in it. I was rolling into it. I was in the wave going in my spot. But after seeing my best friend from Bali not have a wave for 4 hours, I said, come on in right in here. Come right on my little zone right here. What they call the Waikita Peak, but it ain't the Waikita Peak. It's our peak. It's where I actually, that's where I made my, you know, my mark on Pipeline, was surfing that peak back there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, basically, I've had Brazilians, Australians, you know, I had Greg Weber, Ben Weber, John Weber. I had the Weber boy, they've stayed with me, you know.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, I just connect with people, and I love opening my doors to people, and I love seeing people like ride the waves of their lives and not get hassled on the North Shore.
Yeah.
All the things that happen to me, I don't want to see happen to them.
Well, that's what it's juxtaposed with your John McEnroe persona.
Yep. Well, that's why let's go ahead and call up our boy Matt Warshar and tell him to rewrite the fucking Encyclopedia Surfing, because he got it wrong. That's the first half. Where's the remake? You know,
I'll send him this interview. What did he say about you in there?
Just that I'm a prick.
Oh, okay.
You can Google it, like whatever. Like me and Johnny Boy got rode off. And listen, I didn't kiss no ass. I got slapped 10 different times from 10 different Hawaiians, like people I don't even want to mention their names. I've dealt with it. And I've gotten in fights before. I'm not a fighter. I don't know how to fight. But if you throw your board in front of me when I'm in a barrel at Pipeline and I'm about to die because you just blew it, if I have to go fight you on the beach, I'll do it. You know? Yeah. But I mean, I wasn't a nice guy. I would go out during the Pipe Masters. If I wasn't in the Pipe Masters, if I had lost, and dude, every single morning they would run the event, I'd be the first guy out there. And I'd be taxing Todd Holland and taxing Sean Thompson and taxing Martin. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I'll go out. I'm going to get an hour out here to catch a wave. I get to watch you guys all day long. You guys ain't practicing. I'm catching every wave. And I didn't make a lot of friends, but so part of me, like, it's weird. Like, okay, I can do all this lame shit and be this lame person that people think I am, and that I've done some lame things, but whatever. but now I can do all this cool shit to make up for it. So part of it is like that feeling like, yeah, I can be a bad guy, but then if I'm a good guy, it offsets itself. But no, that's not it. What it is just knowing that I was blessed with being able to make a living from surfing, and I want to give back to the sport, and I want to give opportunity to anyone that's in my circle to, enjoy the North Shore. And if it's staying at my house, so be it.
In hindsight, now that you're older, probably mellowed out a bit, do you regret any of that behavior from when you were younger, or do you think that you could have navigated it differently?
I don't regret anything, that's for sure. As far as I do I'm the guy who nowadays, when I see these kids being like how I was, I tell them, don't be that guy. I was that guy. So I don't recommend, yeah, if I could live a second life and have the life I had and then an additional one, I'd do it differently. But what I did, I'll stand behind what I did, and I made it to where I am today. And I got a lot of, I got a lot of media coverage
Yeah.
for being a prick.
Well, what advice would you give the kid today? Why would you tell him not to do it the way that he's doing it?
Well, I would say that sponsors don't like that. The media doesn't like that. Your parents don't like that. Al Chapman says, give a wave. Maybe he has a nice, maybe that guy has a hot sister that you can date. I'll tell them those kind of things.
Yeah.
I'll tell them, like, look, man, like, if you give somebody a wave, you might be giving them the wave of their life. And like, you could be stoked on that. And like, like, I just don't want people to get treated the way I was treated by the media and not be able to succeed
Yeah.
as far as in surfing because they had that chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
Or they caused they're fighting. Like, there's some local kids around here on the North Shore. Some of my friends, some of the legends that we all know, their kids are now big punks. And it's like, I have a hard time not trying to get in the middle of it and try to like squash things, because that's what I'm kind of a mediator sometimes, because I'm a pretty good mediator because I was the guy who needed mediation. A super legendary surfer from the other side of the island, his kids out here on the North Shore getting hassled by another legendary surfer's kids, and they don't even know that their parents actually all are buddies and all respect each other, and they're all legends. And that's where I tell these kids, look, guys, don't be that guy. Everybody's got a dad, everybody's got an uncle, everybody knows somebody. No matter what, you're always gonna, there's nothing good that comes out of fighting and being an asshole.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to kind of help these kids, like, know that you're going to get more out of life if you just, be a little more, humble yourself a little bit.
It seems like you've done a really good job with your own kids. Makai and Landon seem to have great careers, a lot of direction, interested in a lot of things other than just surfing.
Yep.
So congrats on that.
Yeah. I mean, so I brought my kids to, like, and Luke Shepard, Michael Moniz, the eldest of the Monizes, when he was 17, I took him in. He lived at my house. He bailed his house, he didn't want nothing to do. The family, he was not in a good place. He lived with me for a year. Finally, I said, Micah, it's time for you to go back, make amends with your family, make everything right, and move on. And there's another Ayala Stewart, like at 13 years old, he walked into my house and claimed sovereignty, and he lived with me for 10 years. And he was my only son who listened. And I did a little documentary on him. And within 24 hours, he was a Patagonia ambassador, and it's 15 years later. And so, and my kids, so Kala Grace, Eli Olson, first surf trips they've ever went on, Tahiti. Uncle Liam funded a lot of it. Uncle Liam made it all happen. Desert Point, Bali, Japan, Chile, all over California, whatever. I've taken these guys all around the world. And so my kids were raised, my kids are the first kids that'll take their shirt off their own back and give it to you if you're cold. And they're the first people that they ask me, Dad, can I give that guy $1? Like a homeless guy. Because I brought them to Indonesia and Mexico and places when they were really young. Landon caught his first fish on Tavarua on a boat when he was 2. Makai rode his first wave at the end of the road at this place called 𝐍𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐻, which is a place where Andy Bruce and all of us, Biff and everybody, Pancho, we all stayed there. The 1988 Chopo contest, we all stayed past the end of the road down at this heaven on earth. It's called 𝐍𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐻. Check it out one day. It's amazing. The waves are so big, the waves are breaking in the river. And Makai rode his first wave at 2.5 in the river in Tahiti.
Wow.
And so those are like Landon catching his first fish at Tavarua, Makai catching his first wave in Tahiti. And they got to see all the stuff that I dealt with and how I, fought through my career and breaking my femur and smashing my face, looking like Elephant Man, and coming back from a broken femur and this and that. So in the end, my kids have consciences, they have morals, they have values, and they have empathy. And they were raised traveling the world. And I'm very blessed to have the kids I have. And now I have a grandson who's 5, and he's part Hawaiian. He actually has some lineage that is some of the heaviest lineage possible.
Amazing.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, congrats on that. I'm curious if you can remember the best surfing that you've ever witnessed.
Some of the best surfing I ever witnessed would be, it took place at Chopo when in '88, when we were all there, a couple years, 1988, 89, 90, like about 5 years there when Chopo really got on the radar, and we would all go down there and we would all surf, and it would be like, I mean, Healy's first trip down there, and Sean Moody and all these guys when they were Groms, and Bruce and Andy and Nate, and just all of us, like in that year, the '88 year. At that point in 1988, when Kobe Alberton won and Conan got second, and that event, that was that point in time, that was the best surfing on the planet. That was guys doing what has never been done before in a place that had never seen anything like that happen. Desert Point in the 90s, like many years ago, surfing Desert Point and watching surfers surf Desert Point, and then G-Land, Indonesia, G-Land and Desert Point, some of the things I witnessed in those locations way back when that I was a part of were, and then, there was a day 𝐍𝐜𝐻𝐸 1985 or 1988, 89, 𝐍𝐜𝐻𝐸 was 10 to 15 feet. And the biggest, best, most amazing day ever in the history of 𝐍𝐜𝐻𝐸. And it was Ronnie Burns and I just remember being in the parking lot with Mike and Derek Ho and Ronnie Burns and just all of us. And it was just, you never see days like that. Like, this was the day of all days. There was another day about 15 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, when Slater was out there, my brother was out there. It was 10 to 12 feet, like perfection. 𝐍𝐜𝐻𝐸 is one of the best waves on the planet. It's my favorite, right? Honolulu Bay, I got to be in 1985 with the Willis brother team. I went to Honolulu Bay when the guy Dirk Mouse Race got the cover shot and Johnny Boy had center spreads. And Craig Feynman was the photographer. Rest in peace, the late great Craig Feynman. It was Ollie Kai Titus, John Parman or Jason Majors, Johnny Boy Gomes, the Willis brothers, myself. It was a crazy trip. I actually couldn't surf. The day before going on the trip, I tripped over the VLAN little fence going down to surf VLAN, and I fell on my wrist and I broke my wrist. And I was like, it's not broken, I can surf. And I didn't tell them that it was sore, and I got to go on the trip, but I just sat on the cliff and watched the whole thing. So I got to witness like one of the most legendary surf, days at Honolulu Bay. So yeah, Honolulu Bay, Laniakea, and just all the years at Pipeline, just the crazy years at Pipeline, just watching, going down to the beach and early in the morning and watching Joey Brand run up and down the beach in 1985 and watch him win the Pipe Masters. There's a few years there watching Bruce and Ann, just all those years of being there and being a part of just everything that went down, watching Bruce win the Volcom Pipe Pro in the rain, or Andy and Bruce. Andy won it in the rain, 10-foot pipeline. He was 17. Just those moments, those things that like just make me feel good that I was a part of. And
could you pick a best surfer at Pipe? Who do you rank as the number one?
It's so Ronnie Burns died at 27, the James Dean of surfing, and he was the best of the best at that point. If he would have lived, I think he probably would have won at least 5 Pipe Masters and probably would have been the best goofy footer to ever ride a surfboard at Pipeline. Slater's kind of the best in a sense with his record and stuff, but Slater doesn't surf pipe much. He surfs contests and he paddles out at night. So, I would say Slater's definitely, I love Slater and I freaking love to see him win. And I'm glad he, we had our battles and he's talked some shit about me and I'll talk some shit about him. But in the end of the day, like, we respect each other and I totally respect him and what he's done for the sport. I would say Andy was the best, but he's gone. Slater's the best, but he doesn't free surf out there. Bruce was the best, but he kind of threw in the towel a little too early. Wakita is one of the best. But frick, I mean, probably Jamie O'Brien.
It's hard to deny.
But here's the funny one. Jamie O'Brien in the last 10 years has a winning record of like 10%. I don't know, ever since he went out in Speedos or on a soft top, he's jinxed himself. His for some reason, the last 5 or so years, now Jamie's my buddy, and don't get me wrong, but free surfing, Jamie gets wave after wave and gets a lot of good waves. He's had a very bad run the last 5 years in competition. Maybe ever since he let John have that wave and take his Volcom Pipe Pro. Maybe ever since he went out on a bodyboard in the bodyboard contest. Maybe ever since he wore Speedos or has been riding that soft top. It's all added up, and Mother Pipeline isn't really giving him any love when it comes to heats anymore. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, tell me the last time he's made a final or the top 5 or been in contention to win an event at Pipeline.
No, he's not even making heats out there the last few years that I've seen him.
He's getting 2s and 3s.
It's crazy.
he's got a jinx going on. He lost the mojo in heats.
I mean, there was a couple years ago where the WSL called off the event and then it turned on like 30 minutes later. And he was the first one out the back. I could see him. I was watching the cam just that was like a stagnant angle. And you could see him on the soft top paddle out. And then he pulls into what would have been a 10 if it was in the event.
Yep. Well,
So,
that's the WSL for you. They just, yeah. We could go way deep in their decision making. I mean, I'd much rather see 15-foot unruly pipeline in the one guy who, I mean, I won.
Of course.
I won the pipe trials 3 years in a row. And 1 year I won it. I didn't even get barreled. It was 15 feet and you just had to ride waves. It was Aki. It was me. It was, I think, Derek. I forget. It was the trials. And you just had to catch waves. And I was just gliding into second reefers and just cruising through, getting fours. These guys couldn't even ride a wave. You know, pipeline is it's not just about riding the barrel on the ledge 6 foot and backdoor and this and that. It's about having a connection with the wave. It's about picking out that wave that like Gerry Lopez and those guys used to ride, that real iconic, you know, 𝐍𝐜𝐬𝐶𝐚𝐦, Kalani Chapman, like Tamayo Perry, those waves that Cy Smiley and Micah Kima and just like these guys ride, like Sean Lopez. Like, hey, if you don't make it, that's fine, man. You weren't deep enough. Like drawing that perfect pipeline, getting that, for one, to find that wave and then to properly ride that wave, it's rare.
Yeah.
And it's dime a dozen on the 8-footers on the ledge. Like Baron Mamiya, one of the, you know, potentially going to be the best pipe surfer ever. Who knows? Baron Mamiya hasn't rode a real wave at Pipeline yet, in my opinion. Because a real wave to me is a 15-footer outside off the wall that you take off and you glide through and you set it up and you come through the gnarliest part and you hold the line and you hold the tail and you draw the line and you do a little adjustment to make sure, and then you just get spit out of the 15-footer.
Yeah.
That's Pipeline to me.
Are you still involved with the Eddie?
Yeah, I'm the director this year. I'm the official director.
What's the status of the event?
Status of the event is when the bay calls, the day will happen. We're hoping for waves. You know, it's gonna be on. We have the opening ceremony December 6th, Friday, in 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. And then we have a little get together with Rip Curl for the surfers and stuff on the 8th. We have Rip Curl involved, and Rip Curl is a, you know, you look at the 𝐿𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼 and all the who bought all those guys out? What is that whole deal?
Authentic Brands Group.
So that's corporate America in surfing. WSL is corporate America in surfing. Some people might think Rip Curl's a corporate brand, but they're a surfing brand that is owned by surfers, and they've stayed true to their roots. And, you know, they might have had their ups and downs and this and that and this and that, but they're actually a surf brand that actually came to this event and is now sponsoring it and is really going to help us, you know, make sure that we get prize money, we get good, you know, we get good judging, we get everything we need to they got our back, and they're supporting this event.
Has the prize money been announced yet?
No, we're working on that. You know, I had a big credit card company that was putting up $100,000 for the prize money, and they got sold out. We didn't realize it, but we're working on that. We're going to have prize money. So like, let's look at Mavericks, no contest.
Right.
Let's look at Jaws, no contest. Let's look at Nazare. Hey man, Garrett, I love you, and all you guys over there, Nazare, I love all you guys. All good. just give the prize. Just give the prize to 𝐿𝐻𝐸 and Lucas Chumbo, and don't even run the thing. Put your money into something else. I'd rather see like Super Tubes tube riding contests, or I'd rather see like an event over at Mullingar or whatever that those events should be happening. But anyway, yeah, I mean, my point here is that the Eddie is the one and only, bruh. The Eddie is the one and only. If you guys want to see the best big wave riding contest, it's the Eddie.
Absolutely.
And guess what? It's the only big wave riding contest.
Yeah,
and
now
guess
it is.
what? There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Because Hawaii is where the sport of surfing started.
How old are you?
I'll be 55 in a week.
How are you feeling in regards to your surfing? Do you feel like there's a potential that the best surfing is still ahead of you?
No, but I went through a lot of things over the last years and kind of just put all my focus into my family and my business and things, and I'm out of shape. I mean, like yesterday I went out to Rocky Point, but I didn't surf. You got to catch a wave to surf.
So did you paddle? You paddled out at least?
Yeah, I was out there for an hour, 45 minutes. It was curreny. I was like, fuck, sorry. And then I paddled over to Monster Mush, rode a wave in, came in. So
Wow.
I surfed Rockies. I went out to Rockies, but didn't surf it. And then went over to Monster Mush, caught a wave in. Yeah, I'm just really trying to find the stoke. Like my best session in the last year and a half was at Waco.
Oh my gosh. I understand, like I go through phases in life too where I focus on the family or focus on the business or whatever. But in the back of my head, I know surfing will be a priority again in the future.
Yes.
How do you feel about that? Do you still, I mean, why is the stoke missing, or how do you reignite it, I guess?
Yeah, it's hard. You go out surfing. So like, I don't like to go out surfing to just talk to everybody. I'm
Right.
not out there to mingle. I mean, I see these people I see interviews and stories. Oh yeah, surfing's all about like hanging out, talking story, like everybody. It's so cool. I'm like I want to paddle out and maybe paddle by a couple people and shake their hand or say hi. But like when people paddle out in the water and I'm out there and they come up to me, like Koa Smith came up to me yesterday, good to see you in the water or whatever, and I kind of give them like a yeah. Like I don't really want to talk story. Don't take it personal. I'm out there to actually like connect with Mother Nature.
Yeah.
I'm out there to try to like catch a wave. When I talk to you, I'm going to miss that wave. I'm putting my focus into your deal. So it's really hard for me to go surf with crowds these days, knowing that I technically have access or the right to any wave that comes in because I've been surfing out there for 40 years, but I can't even get a wave because there's 12 and 15-year-old kids that surf better than me. And once I get to my feet and start riding a wave, I can still slam some lips and do a little air here and there or whatever. But I'm out of shape, so I can't really paddle too good. And I've always got to my feet slow. So I like, 10% of the waves I go to, I'll fall on my face and then I feel like a kook. And then I'm like, so I've been surfing some out of the way spots. Like this morning, I went down to one of my spots and sat there for an hour, kept looking at the clock going, okay, I got a couple hours, but then the tide was too high. Then I came back to Rockies. I'm like, I got 1 hour. I'm going to go out there and just catch 3 waves. So I'll put a number on it. Like I need to catch 1 more wave every time I surf than the previous surf. Need to surf every day. I need to go back to Bikram yoga. I've been watching Pavones the whole summer, like going, which day am I going to go? I'm going to go, which swell. I've been talking to, my friends down there going, what's the swell? Like, and so I want to go surf some waves like the Maldives, Pasta Point. There's some great, I want fun waves, like head high, double overhead, and just like fun waves. I've gotten my barrels, like getting a barrel would be nice, but I just like to rip.
Yeah.
and or I need my mid length that can turn so I can catch the wave. I'm still riding a 6.2, you know, a 6.0. I miss a lot of waves, but when I get, I refuse to ride a longboard or a mid length because I want to turn.
Yeah. When was the last time you surfed pipe?
So this will be a good story. It was about 7 years ago, and I haven't been in shape for 10 years now, and I pretty much kind of retired from surfing professional 10 years now, and surfing in general, like real waves. I haven't went right on a wave right in 10 years. I don't go
Oh
right.
my gosh.
I only go left. I go right when I do a cutback. That's my going right. I have not caught in a right in 10 years. I only want to
Crazy.
surf lefts. If I'm going to go to Abu Dhabi, I'm going to Abu Dhabi soon. I'm going to sooner than later. I just go left. When I went to Waco, I just went left. I told them you can have the rights. I just want left. Okay. So it was about 10 to 15 foot pipeline. And so I have my secrets out there. When pipeline's 15 feet, I paddle out from log cabins. I backdoor the whole thing, come out the outer reef. Jensen Hassett caught on to that. A couple other guys have caught on to that. I got Landon doing that. So, you know, it's 2 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock, 15-foot pipeline, 18 foot out the back. I'm going to go find a roll in. I just got to get to my feet. I know I can do it. I'm out there for 3 hours. Can't get a wave. Kind of rolling in on some white waters, going to get to my feet. Can't do it. Kicking out, just dodging. Now it's 6:30. Haven't ridden the wave. I'm tired, getting very tired. Fatigued, and now it's getting dark. And so at pipeline, you know, getting out of the water, Puerto Escondido pipeline, like Jaw, like some of these heavier places, like getting out of the water is could be sketchy. So you try to paddle in by the inside reef a little bit. You try to get like a corner of a whitewater of a wave. You look for a wave that's breaking and try to get like a little north, little corner, little whitewater, little push so you can get into 𝐒𝐿𝐼. I tried that. I get sucked over to 𝐒𝐿𝐼. I didn't get one. And next thing you know, I'm down to 𝐒𝐿𝐼. It's 10 feet. It's gnarly. I can't get in. I'm trying to get in. I can't get in. I can't get out. It's dark. It is pitch black. There's no one on the shore. No one in the water. I am spent. I can barely, I'm seizing up, cramping up. And I'm like literally, you know, no energy at all. Sorry. So basically I basically was almost coming to tears, and I was screaming like I thought I was gonna die. And I was like yelled for a little bit, help me. Of course, nobody's gonna hear me. There's nobody around. And so I was like, you know what? So I spent a half an hour out in the water at pipeline after dark that day. And I told myself, okay, I'm gonna paddle out, I'm gonna paddle back over, and I'm gonna paddle in and try another whitewater one more time, see if I can make it. But I'm gonna paddle out and paddle over. When I get close, I'm gonna wait and like get some energy and then catch a try to get a wave. And if I wasn't, I ended up getting the wave in. I got to the beach. That was the last time I surfed pipeline. If I didn't make it that time, I was gonna paddle out and go down to Waimea and paddle in to Waimea.
Holy cow. Well,
My last
the
session.
the kind of last question that I ask everybody is just whose boards are you riding right now?
So at the moment I got a couple. I went out on a limb and spent like $1,000 on some first time ever. I've never spent more than 600 on boards. I used to get boards for free always, but I got a couple of dark arts boards that I really like.
Nice.
And the funny thing is I've been riding a Paisel dark arts, like red tiger thing,
Wow.
which Paisel, whatever, we're buddies. I kind of, there's certain surfboards that I told myself I'd probably never ride, and Paisel was one of them.
What
I'm pretty,
had he wronged you in some way?
No, 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 no. He's just too groovy for me, and I'm not that
Gotcha.
guy. I don't follow the groovy train. But yeah, he makes good boards, I'm sure. And I got this Red Tiger I've been enjoying a few sessions on. Um, my favorite board is the Daniel Thompson Whiplash, or not Whiplash, Sci-Fi 2.0. I ride it as a quad. It's just really fast and loose, and I like to surf down the line. I don't like to really cut back. I like to go forward.
Yeah.
You can go in and out of turns. So Daniel Thompson stayed at my house 10 years ago, and it took me about the last 5 years to finally get the guy on the phone. When he first came out with his boards, he stayed at my house because a Japanese friend of mine who stayed at my house was friends with Daniel. And I opened my doors to Daniel when he was nobody, and he became somebody, but he forgot about, he was pissing me off. He wouldn't answer my calls, or wouldn't, like, I tried to reach out to him. So that's just a funny one. You take care of people.
Yeah.
So I got a few of those. Actually got a Timmy Patterson, what you call dark arts. The board's magic. Me and Landon are sharing it. It's really fun. So I still have 20 boards in my quiver. You know, I got 3 brand new Lopez Clark foam blanks, brand new, 3,
Wow.
that I'm still going to, one for maybe some Tavarua and one for maybe that one last hurrah at Pipeline. I will catch another wave at Pipeline. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Good.
55. I will catch another wave out there.
Start
Um,
training.
yeah, it's going to take a while. I'm going to have to dedicate a good 6 months, start in like March, and be ready for the winter. So it's not something where I'm just going to think I can paddle out there and go die. Um, or I'll just have Landon out there with the ski, and I'll do a step off early morning on the second reef.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what would you like to say in closing?
Well, I mean, first, surfing gave me everything, the North Shore of Hawaii. Everybody who had my back, everybody who was there for me, from day one. Um, it's funny, Sean Thompson showed up at Haleiwa with a car full of clothes. Instinct gave everybody clothes. That was kind of cool. Just over the years, the Willis brothers and Surf and Sea was one of my sponsors. I've had a lot of sponsors over the years. So all the people who helped me along the way, all the people who are there for me, all the uncles, Keone Nozaki's dad, and just so many people that I could thank. But I want to thank everybody, who you are, who supported me, had my back. Michael and Derek Cole, the two guys who had my back more than anyone. They were there for me. They respected me, and they, had my back. Um, and then, the surfers is funny because Bernie Baker, Brian Bielman, um, Aaron Chang, Jeff Hornbaker, those are the guys who blackballed me. So no animosity. Actually, thank you guys for blackballing me because it motivated me. And when Dan Merkel walked up to me that winter and said, fuck those guys, I got you, I'll shoot you, don't worry about those clowns. Um, that was kind of classic. So thank you to Dan Merkel for having my back. And yeah, Bernie Baker's a good friend of mine now, and Brian Bielman's a good friend. Aaron Chang, we communicate. One of my best photos ever was from Aaron Chang. Um, and who's Jeff Hornbaker, I don't really know too well, but yeah, all you guys, thank you for blackballing me because you motivated me.
And
And then
they left a real opening for Merkel too. He probably made some good money off that.
yeah, he got some good photos of me. We never really connected that much, but like Yuri Farron and Don King and Sato, and just like there's a guy from Australia. I got to think of his name real quick. Dean Wilmot. Like Dean Wilmot was out shooting me at the same time these guys were blackballing me, and Aaron Chang was trying to tell him to get out of the water, get out of the way, and I told Aaron Chang, "You get out of the water," because this guy's shooting me and you're not. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So thanks to all the cameramen who, um, what's his name? Frick, guy who got my first photo ever in the magazine, Warren Bolster. He got shots of me, and Ted Grambo, my first spread in Surfing Magazine or Surfer Magazine. So all the cameramen over the years, I really appreciate all you guys. Larry Haynes, Derek Hoffman, Mike Latronic, Free Surf Mag, everybody. without you guys, like I don't have a career. So the cameramen need to get credit for the job they've done throughout my career and everybody's career. And, just basically like I came from nothing and I kicked and scratched and got where I am, and just want, the kids out there, like, unfortunately, 1 out of 1,000 of you guys might make it as a pro surfer. And don't 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 let the odds work against you. Like, put 100% into everything you do. And I was the kook on the team. They put me against the girl on our surf team that we had. When we had a surf team, there was one girl, and I had to surf against the girl. I did beat her, fortunately, and then Brock beat me in the next round. We had our own surf team down at Papaeloa, and I was the kook. But I hung out with people who were better than me.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. Like, surround yourself with people who are better than you so that you can feed off of them. If you have a brother, you're lucky. Like, have your brother push you, push each other, be there for each other. Fortunately, my brother really wasn't there for me much, and I wasn't there for him that much. But yeah, if you have a brother or a sibling or a cousin, surf together and train together. But just, I just say that put your mind to it. You can achieve. I'm an example of somebody who the odds were against me. And, with my higher power, with my mom's belief in God and this and that, and just being blessed to be here. I've been living on the North Shore for 47 years.
Yeah.
And I ain't going nowhere anytime soon. But I'd like to go on a surf trip and go surf some fun waves. So, yeah, I mean, thanks for having me on the podcast. And,
Of course.
I know I said a few negative things about a few things here and there and whatever, but like, that's just me. Like, I tell it like it is. And I think people need to have integrity and need to stand on 2 feet. And if they see something wrong, they need to stand up for themselves, stand up for your community, stand up for your brothers, stand up for your friends.
Yeah.
And
Well,
with your social media, how about every other post you do about somebody else or something else, not just yourself? Because I'm tired of seeing all your kale smoothies and ice baths and all your things about running down the beach and this and that. Like, that's not what I go to social media for. It's just funny.
I hate to tell you, but those are the guys who are, working the algorithm to generate their own pro surf career, because you're right. They don't have opportunities to be a professional surfer in the contest space. But if they post those selfies in those ice baths, they get a bunch of viewers, and that equates to sponsors, and that equates to dollars.
Yeah, I respect that. But there's room.
Yeah.
Also, like, I use my social media as much as possible to like share cool things about other people.
Yeah.
And if every friend group that, they work together and they push each other and they promote each other, like, that's cool. And yeah, I see it, I know, and I respect it. It's just, it gets a little overwhelming.
No, I totally hear you and agree with you. I think that's a phenomenal recommendation. For every one post about yourself, do another one about other people.
Yeah, or something in your community, or something that's like has something to do with making the world a better place.
Yeah.
Look up living a purpose-driven life. Basically, it means wake up every day and go to bed every night and do at least one good thing to make the world a better place. And I hope one day to be remembered not for my accolades, which, yeah, I have a few accolades and I wrote a few waves in my time, but I just want to be known as somebody who actually gave back to the sport that gave him everything and supported his community.
Yeah. That's great advice. Well, thanks for taking all the time, man. And thanks for all the stories.
Yeah, plenty more where they came from. And glad we got to talk. And you have a great day. And
Okay.
aloha to everybody. And if I disrespected anybody, sorry about that.
All right, man. Thanks.
Okay. Aloha.
Bye.
Surf splendor.